Welcome, I'm Doug. Have you ever asked a question that you feel absolutely locks someone into answering, but then they just say, I don't know? Not only that, but they claim it a valid position, and you're left wondering, well, is it? I came across this issue while looking over a few debates on the existence of God. It seemed that some claim religious positions have equal right to say I don't know when raised with a question, and they very well might, just the same as somebody taking the position of agnosticism, the claim of insufficient evidence for either position. But this almost seems to undermine philosophy entirely. How could a belief system be immune to counterpoint by simply saying, I don't know? Let's explore this. So I'll separate the video into 3 parts. 1, what is the difference? 2, how to identify it. 3, how to gently point it out in a real setting. First, we should make some distinctions. There's a real difference between raising a contradiction or an answerable question. If the former is proposed, it must be resolved, or the belief system shall rightly be considered fallacious under a system of logic. However, there are unanswerable questions when it comes to various belief systems. But since these aren't contradictions, they don't undermine anything. Rather, they may simply make such a less coherent position. For example, in an early video of mine, I proposed the question to the biblical God: why is the universe so vast beyond what affects humans? Assuming God creates nothing purposeless, it has to serve some purpose. But what is it? And there lies the question. But again, this contradicts nothing and simply leaves room for an open response that is not too easy to answer. Then atheism can be proposed as a better explanation, where you can say that's just how things are expected to be after the Big Bang, and there are no other premises or other information involved. To make something clear, the difference between, say, an appeal to mystery and an I don't know is that the former makes a claim that something is true, while the explanation remains a mystery. Agnosticism does not make any claims beyond the absence of a conclusion. Getting to the heart of the original question, some questions do have to have answers, if they are binded to information in another premise. For example, asking a Christian if Jesus rose from the dead. They have to say yes to hold a coherent position. Or perhaps asking them about the problem of animal suffering before man. If God allows nothing to happen without purpose, then that must be explained because it relates to the premise. However, that is frequently misunderstood, especially within debates. Now let's look at examples on how to identify these fallacies. Here's a clip of Cliffe Knechtle claiming to not know whether or not the long ending of the Gospel of Mark and the story of the adulterous woman in John's Gospel were added later in history.
We're getting to this point of reliability because I don't want to just change the subject here. You didn't answer my question.
Alex, you asked a lot of questions. Now, could you please?
Yeah, but you didn't answer my question. Do you believe that they were later additions or not?
I don't know, but there's solid evidence that those were possibly additions. I don't know.
Okay.
So is this a valid I don't know? I would say yes. Alex O'Connor here is arguing the point of reliability, whether or not the Bible can be trusted enough to base our philosophy on. Since the point of reliability relates to it, but is still up for discussion, the I don't know is valid. Thus, Cliff's response is completely acceptable, and which is why Alex does not press further. Let's look at another example from the same debate, except this time it's Stuart Knechtle saying I don't know.
In the flood, did they drown over 40 days and nights? Yes or no?
We don't know exactly.
I thought you're not allowed to not know.
You don't believe the Bible?
Agnostic?
I have no idea what that torturing supposedly looked like, or if it was a swift death.
Hold on. Why
Like
are you
with
allowed to say
children.
you don't
I
know?
don't know.
So is this one a valid I don't know? I think not. He says that he does not know whether or not the animals drowned over 40 days and nights. But applying basic deductive principles, an animal would drown in those conditions. Therefore, he's restricted from saying any answer but yes. That is why Alex pushes on this one, asking whether or not it's okay for him to say I don't know. Regardless, the distinction that if you are raising a point that contradicts or relates to a concrete issue, I don't know is not a sufficient answer. If you're raising a problem simply worth answering, an I don't know is acceptable, and an appeal to mystery is when you use the I don't know to make a claim. So how can we point this out in a real setting? Well, it depends on the specifics. If we're debating on a platform and there is a contradiction, I would hammer down on the existence of said issue, while refusing to switch topics, refusing any red herrings, and refusing the opportunity for the opponent to move the goalpost. If there's merely a question being raised, I would point out to another system that explains and emphasize the difference in explanatory power between the systems. However, if our objective is simply to convince someone we know, a calm objection and a walk through the reasoning may be in order. Just remember, it can be frustrating to change your mind, so give people leeway. If you take anything away from this video, I want it to be this: think contradictions versus questions. That's all it is. Well, that's it for the video. If you found the topic interesting, consider subscribing, and as always, have a good one.